Hi, this is Janice Corrales from Corrales Law Group, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite visas, which is the U visa. The U visa came along from the Violence Against Women Act, but it's not just for women, people calling outside. It's for both men and women who've been victims of a crime and helped the police and cooperated with the police or the prosecution in some way. It's one of my favorites because it's really helpful and it helps people who've been victimized come forward and seek protection and safety, whereas in the past they didn't feel like they were able to do so. A lot of people still don't know about it, so they don't know that that is there for them, but it's really important for people to know that it's there, which is why we're making this video. Basically, the police had a situation where they weren't able to penetrate in some way immigrant communities or obtain any kind of information about crimes that stayed there because people were scared to call the police, because if you don't have documentation and you call the police, you're scared you will be deported, and what happens then? So people weren't calling the police when they were victimized. On top of that, that made immigrants easy targets for crimes because criminals knew that if you targeted an immigrant, they weren't going to call the police because they're scared of the police and they were going to get away with it. So the U visa comes along to help easy situations and to protect people so they can come forward and to help the police do their job as well. One of the most common situations we see the most of is domestic violence situations where a woman is being beaten by her husband at home and he tells her, if you call the police, you're going to be deported and you're going to lose your kids. And it scares them, so they don't call the police. But a U visa will protect the woman so that she can call the police and be okay. She can get a restraining order, whatever she needs, and she won't be deported if she qualifies for a U visa. Another very common situation, unfortunately, is a woman finds out that her child is being molested or raped by a neighbor or by a babysitter or something of that sort, and she has to go to the emergency room and she has to call the police, but she thinks, what if they deport me, then what's my child going to do? So again, U visas are very, very helpful, and it helps people restore their sense of safety during a really, really hard time. It's also possible to get a U visa years after the crime happened because, again, they're wanting to restore the trust between police and people. So you don't have to get, it doesn't have to be a crime that's taking place right now. It could be something that happened a long time ago. It's just you have to be able to obtain the police reports and the court dispositions if the crime was prosecuted in a court. So that's where time becomes an issue, because sometimes some police stations after 7 years they get rid of reports, but you could always go see a lawyer and find out if you can get your police reports still, and also always save your police reports and any documentation you have from any crimes you were a victim of. So also, since we're talking about, someone's child being molested or something of that sort, as a parent, if your child is a victim of a crime, you qualify in most instances as an indirect victim of the crime. So let's say your child is a U.S. citizen, but you don't have documentation. If your child's a victim and you call the police and you cooperate, then you would qualify as an indirect victim as well in a lot of situations. Some of the requirements for a U visa are that the crime took place in the United States. So it's a specific crime, and they're enumerated in the statute, but to cover a couple or a few of the most common ones: domestic violence, rape, assault, trafficking victims, prostitution, kidnapping, even blackmail's in there, female genital mutilations in there as well. So some types of assaults as well. You do have to have suffered some substantial mental or physical abuse as a result of the crime. So you have to have suffered some in order to be able to qualify for it. You had to have helped the police and had helpful information, or the prosecution. So if you change your mind and you don't want to prosecute, it can be a little difficult to obtain a U visa unless it's an extreme situation. But if you call the police and you cooperated, then there's a good chance that you will be able to obtain a U visa. It's easier when you have a lawyer, just because one of the steps is that you do have to gather all the police reports and the court dispos, and you have to obtain a certification from either the police or the DA saying that you were helpful in the investigation or the prosecution, and you gather this all up to send to immigration. It's taking about 9 to 12 months right now to process a U visa, but let me talk about the benefits, since that's one of the most important parts. So, but the U visa gives you a U status for 4 years. With the U status, you're able to have a work permit during that time. And in California, along with the ability to work, when you have a work permit, you're also able to get a social security number and a driver's license. So now you're able to work and have a driver's license, and you're protected from deportation during this period. So you don't have to worry that you're going to be deported for having cooperated with the police or calling the police and making yourself known. After 3 years of being in U status, you're able to also apply for your residency, which then gets you your residency card, and after that you can be on your pathway to citizenship after a while as well. So it's a really great visa. We do a lot of them. Again, it's one of my favorites because I do a lot of work with women who've been victims of violence. So it's one of my favorites, and it's really helpful. And a lot of things are waivable that aren't waivable in other circumstances, like inadmissibility grounds of coming in without inspection, or even having been deported before. Granted, we don't recommend you do this by yourself. You should see a lawyer if you have such situations, if you have past crimes or deportations. But a U visa, they do consider these things when you've been the victim of a crime and when you've suffered a lot. So again, it's one of my favorite visas. If you have any questions whatsoever, go ahead and call us or email us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.